You're listening to the League Bound Podcast.
He could be a crazy prospect.
Is arguably one of the best players in all of basketball.
Whatever happens, please, for the love of God, do not take another big man.
Hello, and welcome to the League Bound Podcast, where we break down some of the best draft prospects and the rising stars of the NBA. I'm your co-host, Brandon, and I'm here with my guys, Jake and Cameron. How are you guys doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. We got a lot to break down today. Starting to get some scrimmages, NBA rookies starting to play, so it's going to be pretty exciting.
Yeah, there's been some pretty interesting things going on so far in the season. It's still a little early, so not like the best look at all the guys yet, but I'm excited to talk about the guys that have gotten a chance to play.
I'm so happy that basketball season is here because, don't get me wrong, I love football, but there's something about basketball that just is infinitely better than any other sport. You just don't get the reactions that I feel like you get from any other sport, and that's why I'm so glad that basketball is back. But since we've been gone, I think it's been about 2 weeks, we've had a lot of scrimmages with a lot of the freshmen and, you know, some of the draft prospects. But we got to see Rutgers and St. John's a few weeks ago, and that was one I know I was really excited to see because you had the number 2 and number 3 ranked prospect in the class playing together against a high level Division I team, and they both played really, really good in my eyes. What are your guys' thoughts?
Yeah, I feel like with Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper, there was some high expectations coming in right away, and for them to, in their first like actual live footage against a top D1 program like St. John's, to look that smooth and that effective right out the gate was pretty encouraging for people who have either Dylan Harper or Ace Bailey as the top player in this upcoming draft class, I feel like.
Yeah, my biggest takeaway from the game is they are who we thought they were. They played kind of how you've seen them play in high school, almost the exact same. Like, it seemed like nothing changed with the levels almost. Like, that game was a really good snapshot of who they are as players. I felt like they really showed their strengths and weaknesses all in one game.
Yeah, Ace had that one stretch in the end of the first half where he was just on an absolute heater. 3-ball after 3-ball. They had so many turnaround jumpers, which I feel like if they can continuously get to that spot and hit that jumper over everyone, it's going to be dangerous in the Big Ten.
Oh, Ace was on a heater. Like, I think it was near the end of that heat check where he was coming down. It was a deep transition pull-up, cash money.
Yeah.
Like, why did he even take that? But I think that speaks to the type of player he is, because when he gets hot, like, there's nothing you can do to stop him.
Yeah, there's like, even when he's not hot, he just has a tendency to make shots that just like, they're like yes, no shots. They're the type of shots that as a coach, like, that will leave you with gray hairs at the end of the season. But if he makes it, it's like you kind of have to just be quiet a little bit. Like,
I know one shot that I'm thinking of, that fadeaway. You know, he was being contested.
there was like 23 seconds left on the shot clock. Why would you take that?
I know, and when he shot it, I was like, okay. And then, like you said, it's a yes, it's a no, yes, and then it goes in, and it's like, okay, what do you do when he's 6'11"?
Yeah, he definitely has like the F it button. Like, some players just have like, they give the rest of their team like a couple seconds to like, okay, are you going to help me? Okay, you're not. I can do this myself. I kind of prefer to do it myself. And if you don't help me in the time I see fit, I'm going to do it myself. Mm-hmm. So definitely with that shot right there, and there was a couple more shots throughout the night where he just hit the button. It was like, okay, no one's cutting. Okay, I'll shoot it. Fine.
Who impressed you guys more? Because both of them scored really well, and even on like the broadcast, they had like freshman tracker, and they had their scoring output. So who do you think was better, Ace or Dylan Harper?
I'd say Ace, just because he showed that high level of shot making. But I'll let you go before I give my thoughts on.
I feel like Ace had the better game. I think Dylan is the better player still. And from what I've seen, I think Rutgers, their offense is more fit for someone like Ace in a way. I think Dylan will work better. Like, he might come out of this year a little underrated because the spacing in the middle of the lane will be more compact. I think he's someone who will especially thrive with a more wide open lane. And I think that game showed it really well because there were some times where Harper would get downhill and get in trouble a little bit. But one thing that was definitely on display for both of them is that they can get to the mid-range shot whenever they want. So,
no, I agree. I was going to say that same thing too, because I remember in our group chat when we were talking, I remember saying, I feel like Dylan is a guy who's really going to eat when he's in the league, but I feel like he's going to, like you said, kind of be underrated just because you could kind of tell, like, there was times when he would go in and they were, like, sending so many bodies at him, like, once he got in the paint. And even in the second half, I think they were showing help as soon as he got to, like, the free throw line. So it's like, I think with a player like him who's not necessarily, he didn't have the greatest shooting game. His shot looked flat the whole game, if we're being honest. I think it is kind of going to drown out some of his strengths. I still think he's going to be one of the top guys in this draft, obviously. But I think in a league like the NBA, that's where you'll really get to see him kind of show what he's, best at.
Yeah. Okay, so we talked about some of the positive from the game. What do you guys think of Ace Bailey's passing? Because to me, that was one of the most interesting things from a scout's point of view. To me, he clearly has feel. Like, he sees the right thing to do, but his body doesn't necessarily react on time. Like,
there was that one, I remember, like, that swing pass all the way to the corner that would have been, like, sick when he was already posting up, almost like a no-look kind of pass, but it got picked off. But I'm assuming as the season goes on, that read is going to get quicker. And if he can pull off maybe 4 or 5 assists a game in like conference play, that's going to lead to a lot of wins. And I feel like almost elevate his draft stock, which is already super inflated to begin with.
Yeah. Even watching Cooper in his scrimmage, I feel like the difference between Dylan, Cooper, and Ace is I feel like they're just very well-rounded. I'm not saying Ace isn't a well-rounded player. Like, he clearly has the feel. It's just the execution. But I feel like Dylan and Cooper, they were able to kind of capitalize on advantages when they saw him from a passing standpoint. And Cooper, I feel like he did a really good job of that in his scrimmage. Now, obviously, they were playing Lincoln. But I think with Ace, it's still coming together for him. And I think that's kind of why a lot of people have Cooper and Dylan above Ace as of now.
Something I'm interested to see how it kind of plays out throughout the season is obviously Duke around Cooper Flagg has a lot more talent on like the supporting cast. For Rutgers, it's pretty much Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey, and there are some returning guys, but they have so many newcomers that are a lot more question marks than like returning players for Duke. So do you think that's going to be like a positive or a negative in terms of the limits that might put on Rutgers as a team, like in terms of team success?
I think it'll be a positive just because it can be hard when you've been there and you feel like you were the leading scorer last year. We have something going as a team. Like, we might not have been the best team, but we're building towards something. And then you get 2 superstars in, and now it's their show, and you kind of get that feeling like, what about us? Like, what about what we were building? Like, now we're just supposed to hand the keys over to these 2 freshmen. Mm-hmm. Some guys just don't like that, and it creates a weird dynamic within the locker room. I think with almost all their guys kind of being new and like everybody kind of coming in at the same time, you kind of have to let the talent more so speak for it. And as long as you don't have like a long history of being like a Rutgers leading scorer, like no one on the team averaged 20 for Rutgers for the last 3 years or anything. So it's kind of, you understand that the best players will get the best opportunities in a sense.
Yeah, I think. Well, can you say what your question was? It was just.
Well, yeah, it's like, do you think Cooper Flagg and other maybe Duke draft prospects are going to get praised more for team success, even though the supporting cast around them is easier to work with because the talent level in terms of like the floor of the team is higher?
I mean, yeah, I think Rutgers will kind of benefit from, like Cameron was saying, like they're kind of coming in and giving this team an identity. So I think that will benefit them in the long run. But at the same time, I think Duke, I don't think it'll necessarily hurt those type of prospects just because it's still, there's such a high level program. And even, I don't know how to say this, but like even off the court, they're taking in so many new opportunities, and like, I think they bring in their alumni pretty frequently, and they always get the chance to like learn from NBA vets. So I don't think that'll necessarily be viewed as and I know I'm kind of equating this to something off the court, but I don't see that being used as much of a negative, I guess, if that makes sense.
Another thing I want to ask you guys is, how did you feel about how high Ace Bailey plays at times?
What do you mean high? Like dribbling wise?
Yes, dribbling wise.
Okay.
Dribbling wise.
No, that was something I was thinking about coming.
You thought he sparked up for the game?
He's just fried going for 30.
Hey, some of them shots he did look like, bro, are you high?
Especially on that fadeaway, I'm not gonna lie.
What are you doing?
But no, that was something I was thinking about. Even I remember after like the McDonald's scrimmage, because obviously with him being a taller player, it's like, what is it going to look like when he's getting pressured? And I think initially during that first half, I was like, it seemed like there were moments where he almost did look a little bit uncomfortable to me. But as the game went on, he looked a little bit more comfortable to me. But that was something where I was like, ball handling wise, I am curious because, you know, when he's playing against more, I guess, lockdown defenders, if you will, how much will that affect him, like getting to his shot?
Yeah, I kind of hope if his jumper is working this season, if he's up at 35, 36% from three, I just hope it doesn't turn into him settling for a lot of jumpers because, like, he might be the most dynamic athlete in this entire class. So if he becomes a good shooter, I just hope he doesn't become kind of like Michael Porter Jr. in a sense, where he's stopping at the three-point line in transition and just not utilizing that ability for him.
Yeah, for me, that's his biggest weakness at the moment. Like, the passing is not the best at the moment. Like, he missed a couple passes, the one we talked about where he threw it to the corner. And then there was one where they doubled him off a pick and roll. He just sailed it over the guy's head. But to me, that is all stuff that can be fixed. Like, he made the right read in the double team situation. He just threw the ball way too high. But playing high, to me, it really inhibits his, like, path to the basket. Like, for somebody who's that athletic at that size, you would expect to see a lot more dunks, a lot more layups through traffic. And when you watch him, he just doesn't necessarily do that a lot. I think Sam Vecini brought this up. Like, even the path he takes to the basket sometimes is like more looping because he can't go through contact and go straight line to the basket. He kind of has to go around it in a way. And I think, like, that's a really big part of having a handle, and I think that will be the difference between where Ace ends up. I think he has two different routes he can go. He could be, like you said, Michael Porter Jr., Jabari Smith, really big guys who are kind of athletic and can shoot the ball, or he could be, like, legitimately he has a chance to be Tracy McGrady, Kevin Durant type of player who can create his own shot off the bounce, get to the rim, shoot. But if you can't get to the rim, and we can put smaller players on you that get in your space and you're not comfortable dribbling the ball, I don't think he's necessarily worth a top 5 pick in this year's draft. But if he gets that fixed, like if that ever gets fixed, I think he could be probably the highest ceiling in the draft.
That's a good point though, because I feel like even across like the scouting community, a lot of people have been saying like why they're so iffy on him is because when he's creating shots and like getting to these tough shots, like let's think about AJ DeBonsa, like who's going to be a player in next year's class. I saw a really good comparison where somebody said the difference is that AJ is getting into these shots out of comfort, where it feels like at times Ace. Did I say AJ?
Yeah, no. You said.
Okay, yeah. I feel like Ace is getting into these shots because he's being forced into it because people are cutting him off and he's like, okay, I'm bigger, I'm longer than you, I can just shoot over you. And I feel like Ace's shooting will translate to the next level, but I think the creation is what's kind of the question mark. And I think that's a good point that you bring up because I remember in the McDonald's game, there was a play, he got turned like 3 times before he got to the rim, and he just stopped at like the free throw line and he just shot a fadeaway. And it's like, obviously he's skilled enough to do that, but at the next level, I think that's what's going to separate him from a guy like DeBansa, where it's like, he's big enough to overpower people, but at the same time, he's skilled enough where it's like, all right, I'm going to get to my step back, not because you're making me, but because it's another way to keep you off your feet.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think that's a really interesting comparison because to me, they're very similar players. except for AJ has the passing feel and he has the ability to get to the rim because he just plays a lot lower. He plays a lot more like a guard. You can tell Ace has probably been at like the 4 or 5 his entire life. He's kind of probably always been bigger than everybody. And I think that shows in his handle. And I think it's not like a lot. Like I don't need him to be Allen Iverson or anything. I don't need him to be Kyrie Irving with his handle. I just need him to, one, play lower through contact, which playing lower will allow you to get around and through contact a lot better. But just simple moves that I think he can add that would help him a lot would be like a hang dribble like KD has, a really quick crossover, and being able to like some navigation dribble through a pick and roll. Like I feel like he gets stuck in the mid-range at times, kind of like you said, when he just like, I don't necessarily think he's necessarily forced to take these shots. Like he could pass the ball. Does he want to? I don't really think so. But I think he's just as comfortable as the Bonster taking the mid-range shots. However, I think the Bonster has the ability he can get to the rim whenever he wants. Ace can't this point in time. If you put a smaller defender that can turn him, he'll be forced to pass it or take a mid-range. And I think at the next level, you can't do that because the defenders are just better.
Yeah, you'll catch like a Julius Randle at the 4 who's not even known as a defensive menace, but like that's a strong 4. So that's someone that he's going to have to struggle with and maybe learn some more crafty moves for sure. But let's move on to the Duke scrimmage where we saw Cooper Flagg and some of the other Duke draft prospects. What did you guys like from Cooper or some of these other guys?
I talked about it earlier, but for me, the thing I really liked was Cooper's playmaking because I feel like there was a lot of times where he was in the middle and he was rolling off the short roll and he was able to find the guys open in the corner. I think for Flagg, that is being able to play make is essential, especially if you're going to be a number 1 pick where, they're going to look at you as a guy to potentially change a franchise. And, you talked about it with DeBonsa, and I think Flagg having that, admittedly, I think I kind of underestimated it. It's also an overreaction. It's just one game. But I wasn't really expecting him to be as comfortable making those reads. And that's something I'm definitely excited to examine more.
Yeah, he's definitely like a step ahead of Ace as far as the reads he makes and his ability to deliver the ball like off a live dribble and off a short roll. Like he's kind of more advanced than I thought he was as a playmaker at this point. Keep in mind, it was Lincoln. I do want to see it at the real D1 level, but that stood out to me. Something else that stood out to me was just how much ground he covers on defense. And this stood out to me with Ace too. They both just, Ace is not as good a defender because off ball, he's just not as engaged. But Cooper has the same type of ability where he can cover so much space, and he's engaged off ball. So someone who's engaged and can cover that amount of space, I think there's some potential for some really big defensive highlights for him this year.
Yeah, and we even saw like their first transition play of the game, chase down blocked by Flagg. I think we're going to get a lot of those moments this year, and that's really exciting to me.
Yeah, you think, obviously it's been one preseason exhibition type game, but is the capture the flag still going to be the main thing this whole NBA season with teams like Brooklyn or Washington that are probably going to be in the bottom of the lottery? Is that still what we're pushing, or are we thinking maybe after this Rutgers performance against St. John's, it might be a Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper type of thing?
I think there will be a lot of teams that kind of look at the halfway point of the season and I think we would rather lose because I'm really high on this class. I think there's a lot of guys at the top. I'm not necessarily sold that Cooper would be the number 1 guy at the end of it, but at this point, he looks like he could be. So I definitely still think teams are probably going to make an active effort to lose at some point this season just because the talent at the top of the class is too good.
Yeah, I think for me right now, I think it is still, and even preseason, I had Flagg as my number 1 guy. Ace, I feel like, with Dylan, I talked about it before where it's I just feel like his game is just it's not really going to shine like the way it should. And with Ace, I feel like he had a really good game and he was shooting the ball really well, but with his play style, I just feel like there's games where he's really gonna struggle. And then also we talked also about his passing too, where it's like, how is he gonna impact the game when he's struggling? And for me, that's a genuine question where it's like, that's what I want to see. So for now, I'd say it's still a capture the flag storyline. But I think, as Cameron was talking about, I think that you can get enough value with the rest of the guys and even some of the European guys like Nolan. And I'm pretty high on Igor is it Demon? Demon. And I know that's kind of a hot take. Most people don't have him that high.
I feel like Dylan Harper, while you said his game isn't going to shine as much as like an Ace Bailey at Rutgers, I feel like in the pre-draft process when guys are brought in for individual workouts and interviews, I feel like that's where he's going to shine, and we're going to see maybe a surprising number 2 pick over an Ace Bailey just because of how much he impresses some teams. Because there's a video on YouTube, you guys should watch it. It's Ace and Dylan Harper and Giannis all working out together.
I saw that, yeah.
Bro, Dylan Harper he's keeping up with Giannis. No notes is basically what they're telling him. There's no adjustments they're telling him to make. He's just following suit, and it looks perfect. And if he's coming into a workout with some of these other top recruits, and they have to continually tell guys, okay, we want this footwork, change this, but he's coming in pure, like, I don't know how teams are going to pass that up.
I think that is a good point to bring up, because I do think, I remember even watching their, like, Ace and Dylan did a podcast together for, like, Rutgers, basketball team. And just, that was the first time I kind of seen Dylan in, like, an extended interview, and you can tell he does really have that maturity. And I think during pre-draft scouting, I think that's an area I could definitely see him soaring above, even Cooper, too, because not saying Cooper's not, you know, but I think that Dylan, he does just seem kind of head and shoulders above everybody else from that standpoint. And then just some other scrimmages that happened on Friday. KU and Arkansas played each other. I'm a KU fan, and I know Cameron, he's technically a Calipari fan. He followed him from Kentucky, so now he's an Arkansas fan. It was just a scrimmage, but KU got cooked. That's just flat out. We didn't have Hunter Dickinson and a few other guys, but it didn't look that great. But Boogie Fland, he's probably going to be the next great Calipari guard to transfer to the NBA. He had 22 points, 6 assists. He looked really good out there.
Yeah, that kid is fast, like really, really fast. There was a video I think they posted on their Instagram earlier this year where he like raced one of the guys from the Olympic team, and he actually won.
Oh, really?
Like, yeah, actually, like it was just like a down and back race. I think they just raced down the court, but I mean, obviously, I'm sure the guy didn't go full strength. He's not used to racing on a court, but like that just kind of lets you know what type of speed he really has. He didn't shoot the ball the best. I think he went 1 from like 5 from 3. But like you can tell he's not shy about shooting it from very far behind the arc. And if he can start making those, that changes how you have to guard him. And if you have to guard someone that fast, that far out, good luck. But what surprised me the most about his game was his steals. He got 6 steals in that game.
He was in them passing lanes.
And I watched him in high school, and like I've seen a couple highlights of it, but I didn't know it was to that extent. Like,
and he's not a big guy either. He's like 6'2". He's almost like a Donovan Mitchell type of guard, just like long in the passing lane.
Like they weren't like wingspan like steals even. Like they were just like run through a handoff. Like I'm faster than the guy trying to get the ball. I'm just gonna beat him to the ball.
Not to knock my own guy, but I do think some of it was that DeJuan Harris is just kind of a smaller guy. So it felt like there were some plays that looked like he was about to get trucked, and Boogie Fland just blew it up and had a wide open lay. But yeah, I was kind of impressed by that too. I think, I don't know the numbers exactly, but he had like 6, I want to say.
He had 6 steals. He finished with 22 points. He was really impressive. Another guy who kind of impressed me that night for Arkansas, at least, was Carter Knox. He didn't really have any flashy numbers or anything, but he kind of just did the things that win basketball games. He beat a lot of people to lose balls. He rebounded a lot. He looks really physical for a freshman. He finished pretty well at the rim. He played well, and then DJ Wagner also had a really big game. For someone who was projected to be a top 5 pick last year, he was number 1 player in that class for a long time. He played really well. He knocked down his open shot. He got to the rim. He looked pretty fast as well. So it was a good night for those 3 guys from Arkansas.
Yeah, I feel like it's almost interesting because we're about to talk about the UNC scrimmage as well. Like Arkansas has DJ Wagner, who was the top guy last year, and then they've got Boogie Fland. So those are 2 guards from different classes that have a lot of potential. But even at UNC, you've got Elliot Cadeau and then now Ian Jackson, who are going to be kind of sharing that backcourt. So it's going to be interesting to see which side with Arkansas and UNC, which one has more success this year, because it's a very similar aspect, because obviously DJ and Elliot were super highly rated, but didn't exactly have that freshman year that they were looking for. So do you guys think Ian Jackson, based on the recent performance, could be, leading North Carolina in that head-to-head matchup?
I think it'll take some time for Ian Jackson because they also had a scrimmage against Memphis. I think some of it was just freshman jitters, but he didn't play as well as he wanted to. And I think you could even kind of see it. He was very rushed, trying to make highlight plays the minute he could. But I think Jackson could, and I think obviously the difference between him and Cadeau is I think Jackson is just, he has the body and he has the athleticism to come in and be more impactful like right now.
Yeah.
I think it's just going to take a little bit more time for Jackson to really get into the rotation and establish himself.
Yeah. To be honest, I really don't know if I like the North Carolina fit for Jackson.
Because they've still got RJ Davis, too, who's obviously going to be ball dominant.
And not only RJ Davis, they have Self Trimble, who was a borderline 5-star, kind of 4-star, 5-star guard from a few classes ago. And he had 33 points in that scrimmage, and he looks like someone who's going to be hard to take off the court. So that's like 3 real guards that he's going to have to contend with playing time for. And I think as far as what he'll be in the NBA, I think it might have been better to go somewhere where he might have had more ball handling responsibilities. I still think that he's like super talented and he'll make an impact this year. I just don't know if it'll be at the guard spot. I could almost see him playing a lot of minutes almost as like a 3, as like the 3rd guard and a 3 guard.
Kind of like what
lineup.
Tennessee was doing a few years ago with like Zakai Ziegler and Vescovi, I think, and also Kennedy Chandler.
Yeah, I feel like he might end up going in that role. And for his long-term development, I don't know if I like that for him because I don't think he's quite big enough to play anything but a 1 or a 2 in the NBA. And the way the NBA is going, he might not be big enough to play anything besides the 1. Yeah. So I hope I'm wrong. I hope that he'll get a lot of playing time and he'll be able to get a lot of reps on ball, but it's not looking like that's where it's headed so far.
The only reason I want to see him play, and this is just from a casual, just sit back, relax,
Neutral
fan standpoint. But if y'all saw the highlight he had earlier today, he had he had a windmill, he had a breakaway dunk. Ooh, what he did today, I audibly screamed in my room when I saw that the first time because he almost jumped over the guy. And oh my gosh, Brody's gonna have to put the clip in because I just can't describe it.
I'll find it.
But if that to me is what I want to see, I'm just like, we need that Zion type of player.
I was just about to say that that year with Zion at Duke, it seemed like every single game there was a Bleacher Report or a House of Highlights, just like compilation of highlight plays. And we haven't really been getting that too much over the past few years, but now maybe Ian Jackson will lead us to the promised land in neutral fandom, just looking for highlights on Twitter.
Now, obviously, he's not going to have that Zion level impact before y'all in the comment section go crazy. But just to see a guy who's putting highlights together every game, we haven't had that in a long time. I was really excited for Cohen Carr to be that guy. I think he just hasn't really gotten a whole lot of time to shine. But I think if Jackson can be that guy, he'll have an unwavering fan in me.
Yeah, I also audibly was like, oh my God. I think Jake heard me in here because when I seen it, I was in the room. So I was like, whoa, that's like insane. Like he really tried to kill someone. And that type of athleticism is why I still think he'll make an impact this year. Like that, you just can't teach that. Like you can teach ball handling, you can teach shooting. You can't teach jumping out of the gym at that level. So that's definitely one of the more positive parts to his game. I just hope he'll have a big enough opportunity to show it this year.
Okay, so we talked about the prospects, but let's talk about the rookies now because obviously the NBA season is in full swing and we got to see a lot of guys in preseason, but that's typical. But now we're seeing them in more of an official setting. What are your guys' thoughts on some of the rookies? Because, I know we talked last podcast or the podcast before about how this was going to be an interesting year for the Rookie of the Year race just because there's a lot of uncertainty right now. And I think that's still continuing even 3 games in.
Yeah, just a few games in, first week of action. I feel like it's been a little bit surprising how kind of mid the top of the draft class has been. Obviously, number 1 pick, Zach Risache, he's gotten plenty of minutes with Atlanta, but just hasn't been able to dominate out of the gate as much as some other guys who were later picks, even second-round picks that have, in the first week at least, really contributed to teams that are looking to make the playoffs. So I think someone that stands out to me was like Jalen Wells, who was in a second-round pick for Memphis. He's letting it fly from 3, and he's hit a couple of them. And I feel like that as like a 6'8", 6'9" wing that can shoot, I don't know how he was slept on that much in this class, but it seems like that was a good pick from Memphis.
Yeah, first and foremost, free Robert Dibbleham off the bench, please. Get him in the game. But of the rookies who are playing, Dalton Connect has been really impressive to me. As a Laker fan, I got to see all of his games so far, and he can shoot the ball. Like, he can really, really shoot the ball. I mean, we knew that from Tennessee, but he's shooting off the move, off the catch. He hasn't been he looked more engaged than he did at Tennessee on defense this year, and I'm still waiting for the first poster. I feel like it's coming. He's had a few opportunities where he's almost dunked on someone, so I'm looking forward to that. But I think he's someone I can definitely see cutting out a bigger and bigger role as the season goes on. It's just going to be hard to keep someone who can shoot the ball at that level off the floor. And another rookie, he hasn't necessarily impressed me, actually almost the opposite, but I'm interested to hear what you guys think about Zach Edey and his start to the season.
I mean, I think he's definitely, and obviously he's starting for the Grizzlies, I think he's provided some value to them, but I think
he hit that one corner 3.
that I did see. That was crazy. I didn't expect that to happen. But I think he's struggled a lot with fouls, and I think it's just the defense right now is still kind of coming together, which we talked about with him last year. But I think outside of that, he's still been beneficial to them in some way. It's just right now he's definitely struggling to stay on the floor. I think the last game he had 4 fouls, but that was like his lowest of the season. But also last year, like in college, he only fouled, I think his whole college career, he only fouled out once. And I think it's showing just how different the game is because now he's really starting to rack up fouls. Coaches having to take him out at strategic times.
Well, the thing that I don't really understand is I feel like we were right on top of what we expected from Zach Edey. He'll go in there, give you, 6-7 points off the bench and rebound. But then Memphis drafts him as a top lottery pick, starts him, and that's the production they're getting. I don't really know what the nation was really expecting, I guess. Like, were they thinking this was going to be a 15-15 guy out of the gate? Because I don't think any of us here thought that was going to happen.
Yeah, definitely throughout preseason and summer league, he played a little better than what I thought he would. So I had raised my expectations just a little bit from where we had him coming into the draft. However, so far the foul thing is concerning. I think it's not an easy fix, especially with it looks to be like he's struggling with more athletic bigs, and some of it is just not having the mobility to slide his feet and really move with guys. But I'm hopeful that if he gets that together, he could actually be impactful. He, like you said, he made that 3. He, in the minutes he's out there, he doesn't look terrible, but man, he fouls a lot. And they're not really great fouls at this moment. Like, they're kind of the dumb rookie fouls that rookie big men do. So I'm concerned. I'm not quite at the worried yet. I would say I'm at the level of concern. I'm concerned a little bit. I want to see him cut down on the fouls. At Purdue, I know Matt Painter, that was one of his big things. We don't foul. Do not foul.
Well, it's big in college, too, because you only have 5. Well, I guess you only have 4 and then 5th year out. But I pulled up the numbers here. Edey has 14 personal fouls. That's the most among the entire rookie class. Next closest is actually Ryan Dunn, who has 10. And speaking of Ryan Dunn, He's been balling with Phoenix. I mean, I don't know if that 3-point percentage is going to stay the same throughout the year, but if he can keep this first week going, that's like an all rookie type season.
Well, I remember that first preseason game against the Suns. I forgot how much he had exactly, but I think he had like 3 or 4 threes, and nobody projected him to come in and start hitting shots right away. And the fact that he's doing that, he's already come into the league and he's doing what he's supposed to be doing. So I think if he continues to knock down shots obviously he'll probably fall from like a 46% rate, but if he can stay in that like 35 up range, even like, honestly, even if he shoots lower than that, I don't think it's the end of the world. But right now he's already come in and he's done what he's asked, and obviously the defensive potential is through the roof with him. So I think if he continues his production, that makes him one of the biggest steals in the draft, especially for a team like the Suns.
Yeah, Brandon, this looks like one you got right from last year. I know you had him a little higher than we did on our big boards. I didn't see him shooting the ball like this. It's interesting to me because, like, every year you do see these guys who make a really big jump from what they were in college, and then they go through the pre-draft, and they look like a different player when they get to the NBA. His jump shot was not on my bingo card as being that for this year's class, but if he's going to be able to make threes at, even like you said, like a 35% clip, like way less than what he's making them at now, but if he's serviceable, somebody you actually have to close out to, and he provides that level of defense and is able to take away certain players from the other team, he's like going to be one of the most valuable picks in the class, and it looks like the Suns have gotten another wing pick right.
I think it was actually Jake who had had him higher on the big board.
I just knew some NBA team was going to be every year someone who's like that perimeter defense heavy, and that's just it. That's, at least one always gets drafted pretty high. Not as high as I maybe would have thought with Ryan Dunn, but like obviously, like you said, he's not going to be a 40, 50% three-point shooter. He's probably going to drop down a bit, but even if he stays at that 35%, on a Suns team with that much offensive firepower, they don't really need him to be a 46% guy. If he can come in, hit 1 or 2 in 10 or 12 minutes off the bench, they'll take that all day.
I think the biggest, because obviously the Suns will probably at least be in the play-in or the playoffs. Right now, they look like a much different team from last year just in the way they move the ball. But I think it'll still be interesting to see how he looks in a playoff setting, because I feel like there's times where, they have guys who, maybe aren't as great of shooters, and they're like, okay, you did this in the regular season,
right?
But prove that
now you have to do it when the lights are on.
Yeah. So I think that'll just be something interesting to monitor.
And teams have been sagging on him the first few games. If he continues to hit like this, that pressure is going to come up higher and might kind of mess him up a bit.
But I think right now where he's at, he looks, you said it before the podcast started, but he looks like an all-rookie type of player, all-rookie first team. Thanks for watching League Bound. Check out our full show right here on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts.